The mechanic's mistake. The engine's final, shuddering cough was a death rattle. Silence pressed in on Aria, broken only by the patter of rain on her windshield. She was stranded on a deserted stretch of road, the dusk bleeding into a deep, unsettling purple. Her phone felt cold in her hand. With a trembling finger she called the only person she could think of. "Natalie, my car just died." Her sister's voice was clipped, efficient. "Don't panic, I'll text you the number for a garage. Oak Creek Auto, the guy's name is Kai, he's good." Relief, warm and immediate, flooded Aria. Natalie always knew what to do. The tow truck arrived, and an hour later she stood in the oily, fluorescent-lit bay of a small garage, watching a man in coveralls slide out from under her car. He stood up and Aria's breath caught. He was handsome in a rugged, unpolished way. Grease smudged his cheek, but his eyes were a warm, startling hazel, and his smile was disarmingly genuine. "Hey there, I'm Kai," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Good news, it's a simple fix. A faulty fuel pump relay." He held up a small, insignificant-looking piece of plastic. "Bad luck, it happened, but an easy fix." He wiped his hands on a rag. "I can have it ready in 20 minutes, no charge," Aria blinked. "No charge, but your time," Kai waved a dismissive hand. "Consider it a welcome to the neighborhood gift. I've seen you around, you're an artist, right?" The question, so specific and observant, left her flustered and strangely seen. A week later Kai called. "Just checking on the car, everything running smooth." His concern felt genuine. He asked her about her work, her favorite coffee, the music she liked while she designed. It was a whirlwind. He was a force of nature, attentive, charming, and seemingly captivated by her quiet world. He shared stories of a difficult childhood, of being on his own since he was 17. "The garage is my life," he'd said, his voice laced with proud vulnerability. "It's all I've got." Aria, who had always felt overshadowed by her sister's sharp ambition, felt her defenses crumble. Here was a man who valued creation over conquest, who saw the soul behind her silence. Natalie approved, which felt like a final seal of blessing. "He's so grounded, Aria, so real, it's good for you. You've always been too trusting, a little too naive for your own good. But with Kai, I feel like he'd actually protect you." The words, though slightly backhanded, felt like support. Aria leaned into the relationship, blind to the subtle barbs. She introduced Kai to her parents, who were charmed by his rough-around-the-edges politeness. He fit into her life with an ease that felt destined. Aria allowed herself to believe in the fairy tale. She was Cinderella, and her mechanic prince had arrived not on a white horse, but in a tow truck, smelling of engine oil and promise. The first request came 6 months in. Kai was quieter than usual, his brow furrowed. "It's the garage," he confessed over dinner. "My silent partner, he wants out, needs his investment back. If I can't buy him out, I lose everything." He took her hand, his eyes pleading. "It's 15,000, I know it's a lot. I'll pay you back with interest, I promise. You're the only one I can ask." Aria's heart ached for him. This was his dream. Without hesitation, she transferred the money. His gratitude was overwhelming. Flowers, a romantic weekend, vows of eternal love. It felt good to be his savior. It felt right. The loans became a pattern. 5,000 for back taxes, 10,000 for a new hydraulic lift. Each time Aria felt a twinge of unease, a quiet voice questioning the sheer frequency of these crises. But each time she hesitated, Kai would withdraw. He'd become distant, cold, accusing her of not trusting him, of not believing in their future. The emotional whiplash was devastating. The moment she relented and gave him the money, the loving, attentive Kai would return, showering her with affection. She was trapped in a cycle, her love and fear manipulated with surgical precision. Her savings were steadily draining, but her need for his approval was a stronger currency. The humiliation began subtly. At a family dinner for her father's birthday, Natalie smiled sweetly across the table. "Remember when we were kids and we called Aria Little Mouse, because she was so quiet and would always hide in her room with her sketchbooks?" The family laughed fondly. Kai squeezed Aria's hand, a patronizing gesture. "It's true," he said, his tone dripping with false affection. "But that's what I love about her. Her gentle heart. She needs someone strong to take care of her, to handle the harsh stuff." Aria felt herself shrink in her chair. His words, framed as love, were a cage, designed to keep her small and dependent. The final financial request was the largest, $50,000. Kai claimed a competitor was trying to force him out of business with a frivolous lawsuit. "It's this or I lose the garage, Aria, everything I've built, our future." The pressure was immense. That night, feeling a profound sense of confusion and dread, she went to his apartment. He was asleep, his laptop glowing on the coffee table. She needed a file, a distraction, anything. As she moved the mouse, a messaging app tab refreshed. A contact named N appeared. The preview of the message made the world stop. Is the little artist transferring the final 50K today? I can't keep pretending to be fascinated by her scribbles much longer. The blood drained from Arya's face. Her hands turned to ice. Little artist, scribbles. The phrasing was uniquely cruel, and the contact, N, her mind raced, a torrent of denial and horror. Natalie, it had to be. Who else used that condescending tone? Who else knew about the transfer? She quickly closed the tab, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked at Kai, peacefully sleeping, his face now a mask of treachery. The fairy tale was a lie. The prince was a wolf, and her own sister had led him to her door. A silent, seismic shift occurred within her. The little mouse was gone. Instead of confronting him, Arya became a phantom. She bought a tiny, high-quality voice-activated recorder online. The next day she visited Kai at the garage, playing the part of the concerned, loving girlfriend. I'm working on getting the money, Kai. I just need a few days to move things around. While he was under a car, she slipped the recorder, magnetized and discreet, beneath the frame of his desk. She then left, her performance flawless. The little mouse was scared, but she was also gathering cheese. The game had changed. She was no longer the prey, she was the hunter laying the first trap. The recordings were a descent into hell. She heard their voices, laced with contempt and laughter. Kai, she's so gullible. The lost inheritance story always works on soft hearts. Natalie, just close the deal. My commissions are down and our credit cards are maxed. She owes us. Mom and Dad always favored her, and that inheritance was meant for the family. Arya learned the whole sordid truth. Natalie, drowning in debt and jealousy, had sought out a willing partner. Kai was a conman she'd met years ago. Their plan was to drain Arya, have Kai break her heart, and let Natalie comfort her, gaining control over her remaining finances. The pain was a physical entity, a cold, heavy stone in her chest. It wasn't just the money, it was the annihilation of her entire history. Every childhood memory with Natalie was now tainted, every sisterly confidence a potential piece of intelligence used against her. She spent a night crying, watching old family videos, the images of a smiling Natalie now seeming sinister. But by morning the tears were gone. In their place was a cold, crystalline fury. They had taken her kindness for weakness. They had mistaken her quiet nature for stupidity. It was a fatal error. A mechanic should know that a silent engine often holds the most power. Arya's revenge would not be a blunt instrument. It would be a precision strike. Using her graphic design skills, she created flawless forgeries, falsified garage ledgers showing massive, hidden profits and blatant tax evasion, a fabricated life insurance policy taken out by Kai, naming himself as the beneficiary of her substantial estate. They were masterpieces of deception, designed to exploit their greed and fear. She opened a new private bank account and began siphoning off small amounts of her remaining funds, building a war chest. The little mouse was not just gathering cheese, she was building a fortress. The bait was set. Arya called Kai, her voice trembling with feigned excitement. I've done it. I'm taking out a loan against my apartment. It's $150,000. We can open the second garage location just like you wanted, a real partnership. She could hear the barely contained glee in his voice. That's incredible, Arya. This changes everything. She then called Natalie. I'm so nervous about this big financial step. Can you please come with me to the meeting with my financial advisor? For moral support. Natalie's agreement was instantaneous, dripping with false sisterly concern. They had taken the bait. The trap was set. The day of the meeting arrived. Arya dressed carefully, a simple, elegant dress that projected vulnerability and trust. She looked at her reflection. The woman staring back was calm, her eyes holding a storm of resolved fury. She placed the voice recorder in her purse and uploaded the presentation file to her phone. She met Kai and Natalie in the lobby of the sleek financial building. They were a united front of avarice, their smiles wide and predatory. This is it, baby, Kai said, kissing her forehead. Our future. Natalie squeezed her arm. I'm so proud of you for being so brave. Arya simply smiled. Let's go get what we deserve. The financial advisor, Mr. Sterling, was a serious man in a tailored suit. The air in the room was thick with anticipation. Documents were laid out on the polished mahogany table. So, Arya, you're looking to liquidate a significant amount for a business venture with Mr. Walker, Mr. Sterling confirmed. Yes, Arya said softly. Kai and Natalie leaned forward, their eyes glued to the papers. Just as Mr. Sterling offered Arya a pen, she stood up. Actually, before we sign away my future, there's something I need to share. A short presentation I put together. Confusion flickered across their faces. Arya connected her phone to the large monitor on the wall. The screen lit up. Arya clicked a button. The room was instantly filled with their own voices, crisp and damning. Is the little artist transferring the final 50K today? I can't keep pretending to be fascinated by her scribbles much longer. Natalie's face went sheet white. Kai shot to his feet. What is this? Turn it off. Mr. Sterling held up a hand, his expression shifting from professional to stern. Let it play. Arya's gaze was locked on her sister. The audio continued, a curated selection of their most cruel and revealing conversations, laying bare the entire conspiracy. The room was frozen in a tableau of shock and dawning horror. You lying bitch, Kai snarled, taking a step toward Arya. Mr. Sterling stood, his presence commanding. Sit down, Mr. Walker, or I will call security. Arya advanced to the next slide, the falsified garage ledgers. These financial records, which I've already forwarded to the IRS and the State Tax Commission, show a deliberate and extensive pattern of fraud. She clicked again. The fake life insurance policy filled the screen. And this, Kai, shows you were planning for a very specific and very profitable future, one that didn't include me being alive. Kai looked like a trapped animal, his eyes wide with terror. The walls were closing in and he had built them himself. Arya finally turned to Natalie, whose composure had shattered into silent, furious tears. You, Arya said, her voice low and steady, cutting through the tension. You wanted my inheritance. You called me little mouse. You thought my simplicity was a weakness to be exploited. She took a step closer. But you forgot something, sister, my survive. They listen in the walls. They learn the layout of the house. And when they are betrayed, they chew through the very foundations until it all comes crashing down. The metaphor was perfect. A poetic and devastating condemnation of Natalie's own arrogance and greed. The aftermath was immediate and chaotic. Mr. Sterling was on the phone with his legal team. Security arrived to escort a raving Kai and a catatonic Natalie from the building. Arya stood perfectly still in the center of the storm, a portrait of calm vindication. She provided copies of all her evidence to Mr. Sterling and the authorities. The revenge was not just emotional, it was legally airtight. She had used their own lies as the weapon, and the blow was fatal to their fabricated lives. As they were led away, Arya felt no joy, only a profound, echoing quiet, the peace that follows a long and brutal war. The fallout was public and merciless. Kai was arrested on charges of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The local news ran a small, satisfying piece. Mechanic arrested in elaborate romance scam. His garage was seized by the state. Natalie was not criminally charged, but Arya filed a civil suit for conspiracy and intentional infliction of emotional distress, seeking to reclaim every penny she had lost. More importantly, their parents, once shown the evidence, were horrified. They disowned Natalie, their grief turning to a fierce, protective rage for Arya. The family unit was shattered, but the poison had been cleanly excised. A year passed. Arya used the notoriety from the case and the settlement from Natalie to rebrand herself. She launched her own independent design firm, Phoenix Creative. The story of the mechanic's mistake had become a local legend of sorts, a cautionary tale that also spoke of immense strength. It brought her clients who admired her resilience and sharp mind. She worked from a bright, airy studio, a world away from the oily gloom of Kai's garage. The space was filled with her own art, bold, powerful, and complex. The little mouse was a memory, a ghost she had long since vanquished. She was preparing for a major client presentation when a news alert popped up on her phone. Kai had accepted a plea deal and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Arya felt a final, quiet click of closure. There was no schadenfreude, only the acknowledgement of a debt paid. Later that day, she received a letter from her parents' lawyer. They had revised their will, leaving their entire estate to her, with a specific, legally binding clause disinheriting Natalie in perpetuity. It was a harsh but necessary finality. Justice in all its forms had been served. The client presentation was a resounding success. Afterward, the CEO, a formidable woman, shook Arya's hand. Your work is sharp, insightful, and incredibly powerful. It's rare to see such strength in design. Arya thanked her, her confidence unshakable. Alone in her studio, the city lights twinkling outside, she looked at a small, framed piece on her wall. It was a sleek, stylized graphic of a mouse, its form composed of intricate gears and wires, confidently chewing through a thick, steel-coated cable. It was her logo, a reminder of where she came from and the power she found in the shadows. One evening, as she recorded a testimonial for a women's empowerment network, she found the perfect words. Looking directly into the camera, her gaze steady and sure, she said, "The biggest lesson I learned wasn't about love. It was about power. My mistake was forgetting that I was the one who held the keys all along. His mistake was thinking a quiet engine was a weak one." She allowed a small, knowing smile. "They took my simplicity for granted, but a simple truth remains: never underestimate the quiet ones. We are the ones listening, learning, and when the time is right, we are the ones who rebuild everything from the ground up." The video ended, the story complete.